Christmas, traditionally known as a season for peace, joy, and family togetherness, and that's how I prefer to spend my actual Christmas in real life, leaning more towards holly, jolly, and fun as opposed to trauma, fear, and mayhem. But when it comes to Christmas movies, I do have a bit of an acquired taste for the dark side of Christmas, depending on my mood. But at the same time, I might pop in something like a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or A Christmas Story. Now, both of these are top-tier holiday films, and I highly recommend checking them out this season if you haven't done so already. But there's also comfort, and maybe not joy, maybe joy for some, in the franchise Silent Night, Deadly Night, predominantly about killer Santas, but it gets a little different the further it goes on. But today, just in time for Christmas, we are going to rank all 6 Silent Night, Deadly Night films, including the remake, which is only called Silent Night, but it is a remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night. More of a reboot, but we're going to get into that more later. So my question is the original Silent Night, Deadly Night still the top slasher in the franchise, or will one of these other ones dethrone it? Find out as we dive into this. Hi, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you haven't done so already, if you go ahead and subscribe to my channel and like this video, hit that bell thing if you would. But before I rank the movies, I'm going to go ahead and go through a bit of an overview of the films just to catch everybody up to speed about what happens in the films and why eventually I'm going to rank them the way I'm going to rank them. But even before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what these films kind of originated from, which is a killer Santa movie. Now, in 1972, we saw, well, I wasn't here in 1972, but 1972 saw Tales from the Crypt, the film. Now, I was here when Tales from the Crypt. Now, they did redo this. Now, Tales from the Crypt is an anthology British film, and one of the segments in here is about a killer Santa Claus. So I think that's maybe where that originated. But they did, in the series Tales from the Crypt, in one of the earlier episodes of the first season, they did do a remake of the episode, or the segment from Tales from the Crypt from 1972. And it's a pretty effective in both of them, really. Larry Drake plays him in the newer one. Larry Drake played Dr. Giggles. But there's also a movie called Christmas Evil about a kind of a killer Santa. And this one, it is a killer Santa. This is from 1980. The first Silent Night, Deadly Night didn't come until 1984. And it kind of didn't. Some weird stuff happened when this film was released. It came out, they released it, and it did really well the first weekend. And it was competing against A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it actually did better than Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street is a lot better film, but people were going to see this because of the notoriety behind it. But then a lot of people kind of had a big fit about it being sacrilegious against Christmas and things of that nature. And I think it would have done really good, but because of all these complaints, it got pulled from the theater. And funny enough, Mickey Rooney, I was reading about this. I've known about it for a while, but Mickey Rooney was complaining about it. I think he sent a letter complaining about it, saying it was sacrilegious and all that. But ironically, later on, Mickey Rooney ended up acting in the 5th Silent Night, Deadly Night film as the main antagonist. We'll get into that here in a bit. And I do want to point out something else here. Now, I did a podcast on this one a while back, but Black Christmas. Now, there isn't necessarily a Santa killer in this one, but this is an excellent slasher film from 1974. And this is kind of, to me, the best early slasher film, and it actually holds up very well. I really dig that film. And I'm going to point out Don't Open Till Christmas as well. This is a Vinegar Syndrome release. But so let's get into the Silent Night, Deadly Night films. So the first Silent Night, Deadly Night film deals with a character named Billy, where as a kid, he witnesses his parents being killed by this man dressed in a Santa Claus suit. Later on, when he's a young adult, he ends up working in a store where he dresses up like a Santa Claus, and then it triggers his PTSD situation, and he starts killing people, and it kind of escalates to a pretty intense type of ending. But that's what happens in the first one. The second one, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Now, I'm going to go ahead and point this out. I did get this Scream Factor. Now, this just showed up today, but it was like a special this when they first released Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, they had this like kind of figure here, and they showed it up on part of the Scream Factory's like special club or whatever. They gave me like a email, and they're like, try to get this before it sells out, and I got it. So now I got this Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 figure thing. Anyway, it's pretty cool though. I dig it. But this Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, so the main character from the first one, Billy, his brother Ricky, is now in this, and then he kind of starts doing the same sort of thing. He becomes a Santa Claus killer kind of by the end of it. And we're going to talk more about this later. I'm going to point out on the next 3 films, they were all 3 kind of made for DVD or direct to video films. I think maybe it might have been started in the VHS era, but now this is a Vestron Collector's Video series, so it has all 3 of them. Now, I will point out, a friend of mine, Michael D. Friedman, like a long time ago, did buy me this DVD collection for Christmas at one point, and he hooked me up with this. This is way before Blu-ray ever came out, but this has these 3 films on it. But now they recently, I think it was last year, they released this set, and it has all 3 of the films, which is... So in Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, the main character from the first film, Billy, he's back. Well, he got shot at the end of the first one, but he's kind of been in a comatose state, and they've been working on him. And he comes back, and he's kind of doesn't. I don't think he talks. He's played by Bill Moseley this time, and you can see his brain, but he has this kind of bowl thing over his head, like a clear bowl, so you can see his brain. So it's kind of an odd thing, and we'll get more into this plot of that when we rank these films. But so it kind of follows Billy again in the third one. But in the fourth one and the fifth one, they both completely get away from the killer Santa Claus storyline. They were both produced by Brian Yuzna, and the fourth one was actually directed by him. But in the fourth one, it actually deals with like a coven of witches dealing, on Christmas, trying to do some kind of a ceremony thing. And then the fifth one deals with a toy. It's called the Toy Maker, and that one deals with like kind of killer toys. And then after that, it was kind of stagnant for a while until 2012 when they came through with a remake or kind of a reboot. It doesn't exactly remake the first one; it's a completely different story, but it uses the killer Santa Claus thing, and it's just called Silent Night. But that's kind of where we're at as far as the storyline of all of these films. Coming in at number 6, which is last, unfortunately, and now this was a tough call, but I picked Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2. Now, and the reason I did that, for anyone who's seen this film knows there is a lot of fun to be had in this movie, but at the same time, there is a lot of frustration with it as well. It does include the movie's about an hour and 30 minutes, and it includes 30 minutes of archive footage from the first film. So it kind of re-shows a lot of the first film, and that is very frustrating. But even like the new stuff, it's like it doesn't like tie into Christmas too good. Not to say that kills the film, because there's like some really awesomeness going on here. This guy who plays Ricky, Eric Freeman, he's hilarious in this, and he kind of goes a little over the top, but in a very hilarious way. And so as far as what happens in the film, it basically has Eric talking to this other guy, kind of police guy comes in, and he's recording him, and he's talking to him, he's kind of telling him the story about what happens. It basically starts off with telling his whole brother's story again, which if you just have watched the first one and now you're seeing all these scenes again, it's pretty annoying. Now this was before the third one. This one was released in the theater, and they kind of shit the bed with this one, doing this archive footage thing. I think they had a good thing going if they just like used the archive footage a little bit, but like showing so much of it, it just kind of kills the film. Now when it eventually gets into the good stuff, it is pretty cool. And so Eric Freeman, he's Billy's brother, but he doesn't wear the Santa Claus suit until almost the end of the film. But I mean, as you see in the toy here, but he does wear it. But it's probably the last like 15 minutes of the film. But he starts dating this girl, and he eventually like flips his lid, and he kills this guy that she used to date with the jumper cables, and then he like goes on this friggin' rampage. This cop shows up and he gets the gun from the cop and he walks down the road. This guy's got his trash can. He also kills his girlfriend with the antenna to the car. He throws at her and kills her with it. No, actually, he doesn't. He chokes her with it. It's what he does. I don't know why. Must have been watching some other horror movie where something like that happened. But he takes the cop's gun. He kills the cop and he takes the gun. He's walking down the road. This guy's pushing his garbage can up the road. He walks up with the gun. He's like, "Garbage day!" Bam, bam, and kills the shit out of him. And he just starts killing these other people who are out there. And it's just a big. And then eventually he gets caught by the cops, and that's where he ends up where he's at. Now I do want to point this out. I noticed this earlier when I got this in the mail. This is hilarious. On the back side of it, it says, Ricky is all grown up and ready to follow the footsteps of his older brother, serial killer Billy Chapman. All he needs are a knife, a gun, some jumper cables, a car antenna, and a Santa suit, of course. And I will point out that it does come with a gun and the axe. Apparently, you can switch his hand out for some reason, but it doesn't come with the jumper cables or the other things mentioned. So I think it's entertaining. It's a very bad movie. Very bad because of the archive footage, and then the other part's bad just because it is intentionally bad, but it's also a lot of fun once you get past the archive footage stuff. Now, this is the first one I saw of this series, and even when I first saw it, even the archive footage, it just seemed a little weird just because it's showing stuff of his brother, and his brother's clearly not in the movie other than the archive footage. So let's go ahead and go to ranking, which will be number 5. And we are going to go with one of these 3. Can you guess which one it is? It's going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3. Now, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 3 is pretty cool. It has Richard Beimer in it, who played Benjamin Horne in Twin Peaks. I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan. It also has Eric DeRay, who played Leo Johnson in it in Twin Peaks. So it has 2 Twin Peaks actors in it. But the problem I have with this film, and it does have an intriguing premise, but the biggest problem I have is it is a little slow, and it becomes very, like, after a while, it has a pretty good setup for the first half hour, and it's so basically the Ricky character from the first film is he's been comatose, but then Richard Beimer's playing this doctor in it. He's kind of maybe a mad scientist type of doctor, but he's found this girl who's blind, and he's trying to get her to connect with Ricky in his comatose state. And then later on, when she leaves, Ricky awakes and he starts killing people in the hospital, and he starts to track the blind woman back to her house, and then so he goes back there, and it's all cool for a little while, but then when it gets further into the film, it just seems like they're wasting time. I think you got 3 people at the house, and he's kind of stalking them, and it just drags. It's very draggy, but there are some parts of it I like. I do like some of the cast, but unfortunately, it's probably, I almost rated it last. I was real close to doing that. I did watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 last night, and it's just all that 30 minutes of the archive footage that kills it. So going into number 4, we're gonna go with. Oh no, this is a tough one here. Now I'm gonna say Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, and really that one was tough because 5 is the toy maker. It has Mickey Rooney in it, and he's great. It also has Brian Bremer, who played who was in Pumpkinhead, but he's the toy maker's son. Now the toy maker son is he's kind of like a Pinocchio character that he's created, so in this one, they start getting toys sent to him. The main character, son, gets a toy sent to him, and then it kills his stepdad at the beginning. I like the idea about the toys killing people, and there's 2 toys in here that work very well. Some of them are just kind of generic. They like helicopters and planes that shoot things. And there's a few pretty cool kill scenes. Now there's some weirdness going on in this film that kind of hurts it. It's kind of cool because the same guy, Brian Yunza, produced both of them, so he's trying to almost connect part 4 and 5 together, and it really hurts 5. I mean, there's a cool callback to 4. There's like this larvae, like a worm thing. It's one of the toys. Like the kid goes to the shop, and then they have that as one of the toys that it ends up killing someone later. And that part, all that's fucking that's gravy. But I guess it's kind of weird the way that it has two returning characters from the fourth one, and they're played by the same actors with the same character names, but they almost don't seem to be playing the same character. Like Clint Howard, who plays a kind of a villain, which we'll get more into that here in just a second. But he plays a character named Ricky. He's Ricky in both the films, but he's just playing like a guy who's playing like a Santa Claus, and he doesn't even really act like the character from Part 4. I don't think he is playing the same character. But then Neith Hunter plays a character named Kim Levitt in both 4 and 5. And she has a kid with her from in 5 who is her boyfriend's like son in Part 4, kinda. But they don't. She doesn't seem to be acting the same. Not nearly as good of a performance that she does. Cause she's kind of like the neighbor next door, and nothing. She doesn't really connect too much to her character in the fourth one. There's a little bit of dialogue that kind of hints at it, but I just don't feel like she's playing the same character here, and her performance isn't nearly as strong. It's like she didn't know what was going on with the character. She couldn't connect it right, and it wasn't directed by Brian Yuzna, but it's kind of cool they tried to bring it together, but it kind of hurts the film as well. Now, I do like the fifth one, and I recommend checking it out, and it's awesome that Mickey Rooney's in it. Let's go into number 3. Which film do you think it is? I'm going to go with Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 4, The Initiation. Now, this one is a very oddball. It's the weirdest one of the bunch, and it has the least to do with Christmas, but at the same time, it's probably, of all of them, it's the best directed one, directed by Brian Yuzna, who did Reanimator. But like I said, it doesn't have a lot of Christmas in it. They try a little bit. So when Brian came onto the project, they already had a script in place, but he tried to connect it with Christmas, but the elements were just not quite right for that. And now this is about a woman who is a reporter who starts to investigate. At the beginning of it, there's a woman who's kind of spontaneously combust and falls off a roof. But she wants to get in on that story. But there's this film also has Reggie Bannister in it, who played Reggie in the Phantasm series, which was a cool thing. But he plays her boss, and he's kind of like a chauvinistic type of character who he doesn't want to put like a female reporter on this. He wants to put her boyfriend on it. So she wants the story so bad, she starts investigating it off the clock, and she comes across this lady in this bookstore who ends up being a witch, but there's like some kind of weird vibes going on. She seems like she is very attracted to the lady. Like maybe some lesbian stuff might start to happen. But the lady seems acting like she's flirting with her, but she seems to like more want to be hanging out with her, more like a mother-daughter situation eventually. But that dynamic ends up. She keeps doing some really awful. Now this one's hard to take a little bit because some really awful stuff happens to the main character. Now, Clint Howard is in the film, pretty cool character, and there's a lot of weird bugs in this film. It was almost called Bugs at one point, but there's a scene where she goes up on the roof and she's looking at where the lady had jumped, and Clint Howard comes up there and he reaches into this pipe and pulls out this weird like worm larvae thing, and he's like holding it towards her like this, and that's the larvae from the fifth one, like the toy. But really awful stuff happens to the main character. She tries to get away from this male chauvinistic stuff, and she gets involved with this coven of witches who they basically put her through an ordeal. They have her eat weird stuff. She ends up getting sick, throwing up, and seeing bugs. And then later on, it's almost like some body horror stuff goes on. At one point, Clint Howard plays like a homeless man, and then they make him rape her, and then she gives birth to like something, and then it's like some body horror stuff. But it's really kind of, there's some weird ass shit going on in this one. It is the weirdest one of all of them, but like I said, it is probably the best directed. So let's go ahead and get into number 2. There's only 2 left. And what do you think it's going to be? It's going to be the remake, Silent Night. Now this one is really well done. This one's really close to being the top top one for me. This is from 2012, and it kind of has that kind of sensibility. I think this one may have been a little too late, but it does have a cool thing going on when the Santa kind of wears a mask, and this one's very gruesome. Of all of them, it's the most violent, the most slashery. It has Malcolm McDowell in here, and it's kind of a supporting part. But he's got a good deal of screen time. He gets top billing. He plays the sheriff, and he's quite hilarious in it. Jamie King plays the main character, who's a cop. I think her boyfriend was killed or something like that, and so there is some human element to this, to bring it together as well. It kind of lacks in some areas. There's a lot of it's like Donald Logue plays another kind of asshole Santa that's kind of a red herring character. He gets very high billing, I think third billing, but he's hardly in the film. He has like 2 or 3 scenes, and he gets to fight the real bad Santa, but it would have been nice to have him have a better arc, because I like the idea of the bad Santa being a dick, but then it would have been cool if he kind of had an arc that came back to him maybe not being so much. So this one, I think, is of all of these films, I think this is probably going to be the easiest one to watch. So that just leaves one more, and of course it's going to be the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now this one does have a new 4K update from Scream Factory. I have it ordered. I ordered it in October from Target. They let me down. It hasn't gotten here yet. I don't know what the deal is, but unfortunately I don't have it. But this one here, it is a little bit of a slow burn, but it does deliver eventually, and it is even the slow burn of his descent into madness and the PTSD of becoming Santa and starting to kill people. It all works pretty good, even though it may seem a little bit dated. So there you go. That's my ranking of all 6 of the Silent Night, Deadly Night films. From Clint Howard holding up this grotesque parasitic worm in Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, to the deadly murderous toys causing mayhem in Part 5. And let's not forget the Garbage Day Massacre in Part 2, which is a pretty friggin' awesome scene, even though the rest of the film doesn't quite do it justice. Now, these movies have given us some fairly ridiculous but iconic moments in holiday horror history, and let's not forget in Part 3 when that killer has that kind of what looks to be a literal fishbowl on top of his head that you can see his brain through. It's just all pure unhinged madness. But you know what the wildest twist is? A brand new Silent Night, Deadly Night film has been announced, and since the bar hasn't been set very high, this could very well be the best one of the bunch. I guess we'll see what happens. All right, well, let me know what you think about the films, if you think my ranking is correct, or if it just sucks. Even if you have a different opinion on how you would rank them, you can put your ranking in my comment section. I don't mind you doing that. Just go ahead and put that right down there, or any other comment you want to put in there. Just go for it. And if you haven't done so already, if you subscribe to my channel, like this video, Merry Christmas. I'm Dave Watkins. Thanks for watching.